I'm responsible for all things compliance when it comes to OSHA, MSHA, DOT, even some EPA stuff. We do have a little EPA exposure here for our St. Paul office, and it's my responsibility to, in part, help keep you safe and healthy. I say in part because a lot of that responsibility does belong to you, so I kind of guide the ship, make sure that we're maintaining compliance when it comes to all those programs. Today's topic is, what do I do if I'm injured at work? Does anybody want to get injured, especially at work? No. So we're going to learn a little bit about what do you do if you do get injured, and just as importantly, how can I take care of myself? What are my responsibilities as an employee to, bless you, make sure that my supervisor is aware of my condition, make sure that the proper people that need to be contacted are aware of the fact that I've been injured. So this is as much as your session as it is mine. Please ask questions, I guess, if we go along. Savannah's going to monitor the chat space, right? Perfect. So for people online, please type in a question, if you would, if you have those. But feel free to interrupt, because if it's in your mind right now and you forget about it or you don't write it down, you won't come back to it. So I may have most of the answers. I'm not claiming I'm going to have all the answers. Dee's in the room with me, and I think between both of us, we should be able to address any questions or concerns that you might have. So without further ado, let's get into this. We're out of juice.
And magic.
Oh, we're out of juice. You gotta replug the antenna in?
Dan, do you need someone to run your slides for you? I can.
She's checking. It's working just a second.
You want me to run the slides? I can run the slides. Okay. Dan's message is really important, so I want to make sure he gets into it.
It's just not responding. Did you try to unplug the antenna and plug it back in? Just out of curiosity. Sometimes.
Oh, there you go.
There we go. See?
See, it's magic.
It's magic.
It's HR magic. What can
All
I
right.
say?
We're going to start off with a question. In fact, I'm going to ask a lot of questions during the session to keep you alive, engaged. What is an injury? What's an injury? Start with a simple question. Should have a simple answer, but it really doesn't. What's an injury?
Anything painful?
Anything painful? Anybody else?
Something that prevents you from operating normally.
Okay. How about a paper cut?
Yeah.
Paper cut an injury? Yes or no? What do you think?
Yeah.
We have it.
For the purposes of our discussion today, we're really not going to focus on paper cuts and Band-Aids. We're going to be a little bit above and beyond that, but potentially, that's kind of a loaded question, potentially a paper cut could be an injury that needs attention. What else?
Anything causing lost time.
What's that?
Anything causing lost time.
Anything causing lost time. That's a good one. What else? Come to mind. Hurt, pain. Does it depend on the severity, how bad it is, or not?
No.
Again, paper cut versus something more severe than that. Yeah, maybe not. All right.
Feelings hurt?
Feelings are hurt. Well, we're not, of course, talking about mental health stuff. But, it's a whole different discussion. But we're talking mostly about physical injuries, maybe health-related injuries in terms of other physical agents that may be causing a problem to us. A condition requiring immediate medical attention, 911, absolutely. Absolutely. That goes without a doubt. You got to call 911, and that's definitely an injury. Again, we're talking about work-related injuries here. Another answer to that question, injury requiring prompt in-clinic care beyond first aid. So if I get hurt at work, I cut my finger and I got stitches, or I think I may have broken a bone, or I've got something stuck in my eye and it doesn't come out, can't flush, right? Those are certainly injuries that need to be addressed, work-related injuries need to be addressed. Pain or hurt that is not improving. So this is a tough one, okay? Performing a task, maybe I haven't done it before, the next day I wake up and it's like, oh man, my shoulder is really sore, right? Really sore. What do you think? Is that an injury that's worthy of telling somebody about? Do you kind of gut it out for a day or two and see if it's getting better? What do you think?
I would say it's an injury, but it might become no longer an injury.
Okay.
It's improving. Is it improving?
Is it improving? I've heard that, right? So it hurts today, it hurts not quite as much tomorrow, maybe the next day it hurts even less. Is that worthy to be, we're kind of getting into the next phase here of reporting, letting somebody else know that you've suffered an injury or you've got pain. What do you think?
Does it interfere with your work?
Does it interfere with your work? Good
But you might
point.
want to let your manager know in any case,
Yeah.
right? Any type of muscle strain, you pull something, you come in contact with something that gives you a rash, you would definitely want to just let your manager know as a point of information.
Because what can happen is, if that pain doesn't go away, it's not lessening through time in short order, that becomes a real problem. Because that then can lead us to the next phase here, which is having to report that and possibly seek treatment for that injury, okay? So, when do I need to notify my supervisor? What did Dee just say, right? Right away, next day, 2 days later,
Right
next
away.
week.
Right away?
Right.
Is it
Right away.
That's right away. And there's reasons for that. Promptly after first receiving emergency care. So we understand that if something is really bad, the ambulance has to come scoop you up, take you to the hospital for evaluation and treatment. You know, you're probably not thinking about calling your supervisor, I would guess. If you're working with somebody, maybe you direct them to call the supervisor, let them know that you're on the way to the hospital, if that's the case. Absolutely. Promptly after having consulted with work partners first. Show of hands, who knows what work partners is? Well, if you don't know what work partners is or who they are, you will. You will after the end of the session here, okay? We're going to learn a lot more about work partners and that resource. They are a partner that we've aligned with several years ago, and they actually provide a really good service for us without conditions improving, okay? So, again, I'm sore. The soreness is just not going away. Absolutely, you have to tell your supervisor, your manager about that, okay? We, on average, historically here at AET, we wind up having about 8 to 10 recordable injuries every year. We are off to a really tough start this year. We've recorded 6 recordable injuries. We're barely into our second quarter, and we're way ahead of schedule. And it's to be concerning. It really is. And we're going to get into why that's of importance to us on many different levels. Okay. AET for support of injury must be completed. Can we get this to go away? Thanks. The AET first report of injury must be completed and signed by the supervisor. The supervisor has to see it. You have to interface with your supervisor. You're going to complete that first report of injury. It's basically a single page that gets into the particulars of how it happened, why it happened, what was going on at the time, the circumstances, whether there was a witness, somebody working with you that can validate how the injury occurred. But that supervisor also has to look at that acknowledge the information on that first report of injury, and then sign it and date that first report of injury. We as an employer are obligated by law, okay, within 10 days of a injury involving either lost time or medical expense, it has to be reported to the Department of Labor and Industry, okay? That's in state statute for the state of Minnesota. The work comp laws are a little different for each state, but for the state of Minnesota, we are obligated by law within 10 days to make that first report of injury to the Department of Labor and Industry. Usually that's done through our insurance carrier, Travelers. So when an employee tells me they've been hurt, they've gone to the clinic, we've had medical expense or lost time, absolutely that claim is initiated within the Travelers system, and then Travelers shoots that off to the Department of Labor and Industry on our behalf. Yes, sir.
Do we do the same for all states that we work in?
We're the most arduous. Minnesota is the most, some of them are a little longer as far as time commitments. Minnesota is the toughest, so that's the standard that we go by.
And if we don't observe that 10-day limit or that requirement, we can be penalized. They can issue fines or penalties to the company. So we want to do it as quickly as possible, so we're well within that timeline. But most importantly, we want to make sure that you, the injured worker, are getting the care that you need, right?
I will,
Wow.
okay. Here you go.
All right. So the little asterisk up here points us to the bottom of the screen. We talk about first aid only, right? We talk about situations where first aid only, which would be what? A Band-Aid, right? Putting a Band-Aid on a cut. Do you necessarily need to report that to your supervisor? No, you don't. Paper cuts, those kinds of things. But the little asterisk points to this. We do have certain clients, customers that do require us to report first aid only injuries, okay? So talk to your project manager, look at that contract language to see if it describes in some detail about having to report to the client or customer. So you're on their property, you're doing work, right? You cut your finger and you put a Band-Aid on it. Sometimes the client actually wants to know about that stuff. We don't necessarily do because we know that that happens every day, and it's minor from that standpoint. So, here's to pull you into the discussion here a little bit. Are these work-related injuries? What do you think? An employee hurts his or her back while shoveling snow in his driveway so he or her could get to work. What do you think? Work-related injury or not?
No,
Why not?
it didn't happen at work.
It didn't happen at work. Pretty simple. Forward. The employee was injured on the job because he or she didn't use their safety glasses.
Yes.
Work-related injury?
Yes. Some job.
Yeah, it is. They should have been using their safety glasses, but they weren't. After 6 months of steady typing, the employee develops carpal tunnel syndrome. What do you think?
Yes.
Work-related injury or not?
Yep.
We know that carpal tunnel is a chronic type of an injury, right? It can take quite a long time to develop, but it depends on how much typing you're doing, I suppose. So potentially, this could be a work-related injury. And the reason why I say potentially is part of evaluating the compensability of a claim is to look at other activities that you're doing even outside of work, right? So hearing loss, if an employee says, you know, geez, I got hearing loss, we go in, we validate that there's a loss of hearing, a standard threshold shift. But, oh, by the way, you know, I shoot my firearm every weekend. That could be a contributing factor to hearing loss, and that's where it can get a little sticky as to whether or not that's a compensable claim and work-related or not. So, statutory criteria. Let's talk about that. To be covered within the worker compensation system or work comp, an injury must arise out of and take place in the course of the employee's employment. what does LAD mean? That means it has to occur while on the clock and while performing job-related tasks, okay? So an example, a field employee is dispatched to the hardware store to purchase a tool, okay, work-related during the workday. On the way, he stops to pick up his dry cleaning, falls and gets hurt. What do you think? Work-related or not?
Not a job-related task.
Were they on the clock?
Yes.
Probably, but were they performing a job-related task? That sounds like an errand, right? That's a personal errand? Yeah. Entry occurred while performing a personal errand and is not work-related, therefore not considered. Okay. It's interesting. Recordability and work comp insurance. So OSHA requires employers to record all recordable injuries and share that information with OSHA and employees annually, which I do. So we have the OSHA 300A summary form, which is I think still posted in the break room over here. And that summarizes across all of AET the number of recordable injuries that we've had, labor hours, and a bunch of other statistics in there. Lost time occurrences, injuries that have resulted in light duty or alternate duty type activities as well. All that is summarized, and that has to be posted in all of our places of employment on an annual basis, which we do. What does recordable mean? Are all injuries considered recordable based on the definition that OSHA uses? What do you think? What makes an injury a recordable injury that I have to now log in our OSHA log? What do you think?
Time lost.
Lost time, absolutely, that's one of them. Good one.
Medical expenses.
Incur medical expenses, do you think, yes or no? What do you think? And, what?
Reportable or recordable?
Recordable, not reportable, recordable.
Yes.
So just because a medical expense doesn't mean it's recordable. Well, she gets a little bit deeper into that definition. You have to receive treatment at a medical facility. So if I go in for an x-ray, x-ray is not treatment, it's considered diagnostic. So I still have to file an insurance claim because there's a medical expense, but I don't have to record it as a recordable in our OSHA log, okay? What else? What other criteria do you think make it rise to recordability for OSHA?
Prescription.
I'm sorry, what's that?
Any prescription written?
Prescription, that's another one. Regardless of whether the prescription is filled. So the doc says here, here's a prescription for antibiotic. And you take it and you walk out the door and it's like, I'm not gonna get this filled. That doesn't matter. This is, if it was issued, it becomes a recordable event. What else?
Death.
What's that?
Death.
Death. Death is, yes, death is recordable.
OSHA wants to know about that.
In fact, the employer has 8 hours to call in a fatality in the workplace. They have 8 hours. Yep. Prescription, you said, right? A prescription for over-the-counter medication at prescription strength. So here's some Advil, here's some ibuprofen, right? But it's 600 milligrams and it's issued as a script. Again, that's recordable. Any type of light duty, or alternate duty, or limited duty, whatever you want to call it, time, that's recordability as well. So the doc says, you hurt your arm, you can use your arm, but you can't lift more than 10 pounds for the next 5 days. That is a recordable event. Yeah.
Physical therapy needed?
Physical therapy. Chiropractic care. Oh, my back hurts, you went into the doc, right? And the doc says, well, why don't you go to the chiropractor? What do you think? Are chiropractors legitimate doctors?
Yes.
Actually, chiropractic care is a recordable criteria. It is. So, all right, keep moving here. So, I think you nailed most of them or all of them. That's good. So, every employer is required to carry workers' comp insurance. That's an absolute. So, AET pays a premium annually for work comp insurance. We have a bunch of different lines of insurance. We have auto, general liability, property, professional liability. Work comp is one of them, so we pay. Or you could be self-insured. Travelers provides work comp coverage for us. Claim is open anytime injured cases have associated expenses. Again, medical costs, lost wages, or rehabilitation costs. So we cannot, we, the company cannot write a check to the clinic to say here, here's $500 or $1,000 for taking care of our employee. That's actually illegal. We can't do that. We can't pay the clinic direct for those services. We have to file an insurance claim. Why do we have to file the insurance claim? Anybody have a guess?
Paper trail to OSHA.
It's a paper trail. Yeah, that's one of them.
Well, the insurance companies have to know your risk.
Yes, yes. And those costs then, whether it's lost wages, medical costs, or rehab costs, what are those used to do then? I'm bleeding you on here. There's a pretty important piece to this.
Set your rates.
What's what?
Set your rates.
Ding, you got it. Our experience modification, right? Our EMR, you've heard me probably talk about that before, but that establishes the premium that you pay then for that work comp insurance annually. So it's no different. You get into a car accident, you call your insurance company, you get your car fixed, it costs you whatever, $4 or $5 grand. What happens to your premium? So you can't do anything under the table. So if there's expenses related to this stuff, you have to tell your insurance carrier, otherwise your rates aren't going to be adjusted accordingly, and it's actually illegal. You get into big trouble for doing it. Okay, so I do that. Bonus question for you: can a first aid or hurt injury become a recordable injury?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Sure can if it doesn't receive timely medical attention. So yes, there have been instances where a paper cut has gotten infected, and becomes a recordable injury because they go to the doc and the doc says, here's some antibiotics. Yes, unlikely though, very unlikely. So, if we have a hurt, right, not 911, but if we have a hurt, any solutions come to mind to prevent that from happening? From going down the road of a minor, becomes a moderate, becomes a major. What do you think? What can we do, maybe, to kind of head it off at the pass a little bit? What do you think? What resources do you think we have? What resources do you think we might have to maybe get some qualified healthcare professional advice? Okay, this is where we start to transition now into this thing called work partners. Okay, we're going to talk a lot more about that here in just a few minutes. Historical injuries at AET. So, muscle strains at the top of the list. Okay, we've got 6 recordables this year. 3 of those are related to strains and sprains. Okay, 2 back, 1 hand. Okay, so contusions and bruises. This is usually a fall, right? Somebody falls down. Cuts, lacerations. Those are the 3 biggies historically. I've looked at this stuff over the last 10 years. Those 3 causes are right here. So, improper lifting and poor body mechanics. That leads the pack when it comes to muscle strains and sprains. It's people not using their body as well as they should or could. It's poor body mechanics, lifting techniques, all that stuff. We know better. Part of your ADP curriculum, right, is either industrial ergonomics or office ergonomics, and it goes into some detail about body positioning, how to use your body correctly, especially when lifting. Trips and falls, human factors. So part of my job is to do an incident investigation, look at root cause. I sit down with the employee and their manager after they've been hurt, and I try to get into their head a little bit. Right? Tell me why this happened. What were you doing at the time? That's part of my responsibility, because then we look at how to prevent it from happening again, right? These are really good. It's hard to control that, right? I can't be everywhere all the time. I can't help you make better decisions. It's really tough. And it's frustrating, to be honest, from a safety professional standpoint, especially when the employee knows better. Okay. So our first recordable this year was metal filing caught in the eye of the worker. They didn't get it taken out for several days. It almost rusted in their eye. They had to go into an eye specialist to actually get it removed. And no less than 3 times did that employee admit during the phone call, I should have had my safety glasses on. I should have had my safety glasses on. He knew better. Failed to do what he was supposed to do at the time, and it resulted in him almost losing his eye, but also a recordable injury. So, failing to use PPE. Absolutely. I think I've got a picture coming up here. If you're a little squeamish, it's not too bad. It's not bad at all. I know it's 3 much hour. It's not bad. This is an AET employee. Okay, this is actually our second recordable injury for the year. A cut finger. This one required stitches. I like to show the pictures because this is us, right? This isn't a wild, crazy picture off the internet. This is AET people getting hurt, okay? So, it's not too bad, but stitches and I think a little nerve damage maybe resulted from that, so. So how do injuries impact our employee owners at AET? You know, all this stuff comes off the bottom line, right? All the outside costs. And it affects all of us in many, many ways. I describe it as the iceberg, and I know that Dee wanted me to put this image in here because it is a good visual. So this is a classic model when it comes to health and safety stuff and looking at risk and how we account for costs associated with injuries. The stuff above the water line, right? You know, the iceberg, you know, most of it is below. The stuff above is what we call direct expenses and costs. This is the stuff that we can actually, you know, we can actually account for, we can track pretty easily. Increased work comp insurance costs. So again, that EMR goes up, our premium goes up, and we have to do something with that. So we either pass that cost on to the client and the customer, or it means that our annual bonus is just a little bit less, right? Legal expenses, fines from regulators, thank goodness, since I've been here, and I think even looking back quite a ways, I don't think AET has ever been fined. Received a penalty or fine from OSHA that I'm aware of. The stuff below the water line is just as impactful, if not more. In fact, again, the model that this belongs to with respect to health and safety, they say 3 to 5 times the cost of the stuff below the water as opposed to above the water. So we take a look at that. This is the indirect cost. A little bit tougher, right, to quantify, if you will. Lost productivity. Somebody gets hurt. How do you get that person replaced? You know, what happens? We got to shut that project down maybe? You know, if it's a drilling crew of 2 people and the driller assistant and the driller gets hurt and they're out in the middle of nowhere, you know, how do you replace that, right? Lost opportunities. Our EMR goes up, our incident rate, our DART go up, and now we got to disclose that to potential client or customer. They look at our safety performance and they say, AET, too much of a risk, we'll pass, no thanks. Reputation. Nobody wants to be that company that allows their employees to get hurt, right? Morale within the workforce, and then the time spent by maybe HR trying to find a replacement, or the training costs associated with getting that person onboarded to replace that injured worker. Especially if the injured worker's off of work for weeks or months, right? So, a lot of different ways. Leading question, who's responsible for managing injuries? Who do you think? Who's responsible? Who manages injuries?
You.
Huh? Me?
You, Chad.
I got a little bit of responsibility, not a lot. Come on. Who's responsible for managing injuries? Worker gets hurt.
Ourselves.
Ourselves, right, the worker? Anybody else come to mind?
Manager.
Manager. So what's the manager's role in helping manage that return to work? Or finding accommodations for that worker that's been hurt? You know, I can't lift more than 10 pounds for the next 2 weeks. Well, geez, let's see. What can we have you do, right? Around the office. Right? Whose call is that? Well, it's the manager's call, right? So let's take a look at these employee responsibilities. First and foremost, prompt reporting. Okay. That's squarely on you. I don't know if you're hurt unless you tell me. Or I can see it, I guess. The want to return to 100% as soon as possible. I'm not saying that employees like to take advantage of light duty work or maybe sitting at home if they're prescribed to be off of work, but we have had occasions where employees, let's just say, are less than enthusiastic about wanting to come back as quickly as possible. So that's an expectation. We hope, right, that you want to get back to work. Most people enjoy what they do. They enjoy working, getting up out of bed, and actually having purpose, coming into work every day. Schedule and attend clinic visits and physical therapy. Provide revised workability reports. So you get hurt, you go to the doc. When you see the physician or the doctor, they're going to issue, as part of the discharge paperwork, a workability report that may have those work limitations in there, work restrictions. You can't lift, push, pull, drag, this or that for the next week or 2 weeks. You got to get to your clinic visits. Okay? So if it's a follow-up in the next 2 weeks, get that thing booked, right? Make sure you get on it, get it booked. Make sure you go to your clinic visit. It just improves, right, the timeline for you coming back at 100%. And when you go to that PT appointment, if there's a revised workability report, you got to give that to your manager as well. They have to see that. We can't, as an employer, ask you to do something that you're not supposed to do, even though you want to do it. Right, Dee?
Yep.
I can do this. Even with a cast on, I can still do. No, you can't do that. We're obligated to make sure you stay within the bounds of those limitations. Work with payroll to make sure your time card is accurate. We have had occasions where employees gotten double paid because when you're in the work comp system, the work comp claim, and in this case travelers, is the paying party. They're the ones who actually pay you while you're on disability or your lost time wages. And if you don't tell the payroll department that indeed you are off of time, and you potentially can get 2 checks. You could get paid by ADT and you can get paid by travelers. We have had that happen in the past, and it's a mess. It is a mess.
How do you put a clinic appointment in a time card? Or,
You just need to tell payroll.
okay.
You
Yeah.
just need to tell payroll that, because you're telling workers' comp that you're going to the doctor's appointment, right? So let's say it's 2 hours, right? You just need to tell payroll that you have 2 hours. That's why your timesheet only says 6 hours instead of 8 hours.
Gotcha.
That's how you would account for it.
So you're not using PTO time.
Right.
Do not use PTO
No.
time for those appointments. Thank you. Manager responsibilities. Again, that first report of injury, you have to review that first report of injury, sign and date that. Obviously get it over to me so we can enter that information and get that claim completed. Participate in the incident investigation. Again, it's me, injured employee, and manager typically sitting down. We're talking about how it happened, why it happened, going through that. Review the work restrictions and assign accordingly. And again, if you show up with a new workability report with the revised limitations, and the manager looks at it and says, you know, we just can't accommodate those. I got no work for you. You know, that it doesn't involve, you know, you not sticking to these limitations. You have to have that conversation. Manager has to know that that's the case, and they would get with payroll. Monitor worker appointments, of course, and then report payroll and HR accommodations can no longer be made, as I said. So, got to monitor that. Travelers, they have a dog in the fight. They absolutely do. They're a partner in this. So a claim is entered into the system, usually by me. A claim agent is then assigned to that claim. This is a traveler's employee that monitors, right, what's going on with that claim. They want the same thing that we do. We want to return that worker to 100% as quickly as possible. Okay? They don't want to pay any more on that claim than we do. So we're all in it for the same reason. Works with the employee to establish a care management plan. So the care management plan is, they're going to look at the extent of the injury. They're going to make sure you've got the right doctor. They're going to advise, right, you've got the right doctor. If you need an orthopedist, that's what they're going to do. Right? If you need another specialist in an area, they're going to help establish that. And they're going to monitor those appointments. Make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. The progress, right, and the improvement of your condition is along an acceptable line. Yeah, so they're going to pull in and recommend any specialist. A QRC is a qualified rehabilitation consultant. So if it's a longer term injury and you need extended physical therapy stuff, again, they have resources that they can pull in. Any questions about that stuff? All right. How do we prevent injuries or manage that risk? It's a question. How do we prevent injuries from happening? You tell me.
Wear PPE.
What's that?
Wear PPE.
Wear PPE.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What else?
Don't rush.
Don't rush. Human behavior stuff. What else?
Administrative controls, engineering.
He's got it. Some administrative controls, some engineering stuff.
Field hazard assessments.
Hazard assessments. Yeah. You're getting them. That's good. There's no right or wrong answer here. There's no right or wrong answer. It starts with safety culture, doesn't it? If you think big picture, kind of organizationally, this is what we're trying to do here. We're trying to create a culture of safety where safety is not an afterthought. It's in the front of our head. So we're trying to train the brain to think safety first. It's a difficult thing. Everybody comes at safety a little bit differently. We all have different risk tolerance in our lives. Some people still choose to drive without a seatbelt. Not me. Okay? So my risk tolerance is pretty high when it comes to that. We want to make sure from a safety culture standpoint that we're emphasizing safety first and we're not prioritizing budget or schedule above safety. Okay. Training, I think you guys hit that. Hazard recognition and task instruction. Policies, programs, and procedures. So those are the administrative controls, right, that you were talking about. We're setting the expectation everybody to follow the same approach to work. There's all that kind of stuff in there. Targeted initiatives and campaigns. This year, you're going to see a push on this total worker health stuff that we've got coming. Okay, you're going to hear more about that here in the coming weeks. We're really thinking a little bit more holistically and comprehensively when it comes to the worker. So not just the nuts and bolts of training stuff, but looking a little bit at other contributing ways to improve the health and well-being of the employee as well. What else can we do? We can adopt best practices, So OSHA standards and regulations are about a grade C, right? We want to get to an A. We want to be a best-in-class safety organization. We can't do it by just following OSHA standards and regulations. We have to go above and beyond. Right? Accountability. Ooh. I know. Accountability. We're staying true to our commitment to safety first. Okay. We got to police ourselves and each other, don't we? Again, it's not just me that's responsible for this in the organization. It's all of us, all of you, and we have to hold each other accountable to stuff. My expectation of you is if you see something that's not right, or as they say, see something, say something. Please intervene. We empower everybody with stop work authority. Certainly, if it's imminent hazard stuff, please do something about it. But if you see a coworker that's making a bad decision, maybe not following a policy or practice or procedure, please intervene. look at it as a teaching moment, just take a few minutes and remind them why, we're doing it the way we're doing it, please. So, hold each other accountable. So what we're talking about is proactive, right? So I should be, and I do, spend about 80% of my time on the proactive side. How do we prevent bad stuff from happening to us, right? Ta-da! We finally got the work partners. They are our engineering management partner. They, in my opinion, are providing a very good service. I've yet to hear anything negative about the consultation calls that they provide to our injured workers, which I'm happy about. So what do they do? It's a doctor care hotline. Is anybody, I should say, I can't ask that question. I stopped myself short.
He hates it when HR's in the room.
If anybody has called, and I'll put it this way, if anybody's called, what they're calling, what they're getting is a physician, a qualified healthcare professional. This isn't first aid or advice, by Dan, which is great. It's just the liability onto a qualified healthcare professional. So you're getting a doctor, a physician. Okay. So again, we're talking about a work-related injury, non-critical. This is not a 911 service. This is non-critical stuff. Doctor, I sprained my ankle. Oh, I got a cut. Man, do I need stitches or not need stitches? What does it look like? So non-critical care, you get a doctor, and that doctor is gonna help triage, gonna talk you kind of through what happened to you and what your conditions are, and give you some recommendations. And it usually is in the form of some self-care. So, triage occurred, or first aid conditions, sprained ankle cuts, muscle sprains and sprains, as I said. It's a confidential call, okay? This is between you and the doctor. I don't get any of your medical history information. The only thing that Dee and I get, right, we get an email after the phone call. Email comes to our inbox saying, this date and time, this employee reported this type of injury. And this is the recommendation that the doctor provided. And that's it. I don't see if you're on any medication. I'm not able to see or hear about any of your medical history, any of that stuff. Okay? So it is truly a confidential call. You're going to get some self-care advice. The doctor's going to say, geez, the way you're describing it, man, and take a picture maybe with your phone and send it to the doctor when you're on the phone call with him or her. And you say, geez, that's a nasty cut. You probably should get in and get that looked at and maybe get stitches. Or they could look at it and say, does the bleeding stop? Bleeding stop, let's throw some gauze on it, let's wrap it up tight. Let's see, how that responds. So that's the kind of conversation that you can expect coming from a physician. What they're going to do then, too, is they're going to call back, usually in a couple days, and check up on you, which is nice. Geez, has that ankle gotten any better? Is that black and blue, the swelling gone down? Can you walk on it now or not walk on it? So based upon that follow-up phone call, the doctor then may say, looks like you're on the road to recovery, or maybe you should get in and get x-rays, right? Because it's not responding the way it should. Okay. So, is a call to work partner, is that a recordable? Is that a recordable criteria? What do you think?
No,
Yes.
that's why it exists.
What's that?
I said no, that's like why it exists.
Exactly. So what are we trying to do here? What is the purpose and the outcome that we're trying to get to with a intervention or a service like this? Exactly. So,
Can you repeat that again?
yes.
Just repeat it again, because I don't think everybody heard it.
What are we trying to accomplish then with a service like the Work Partners with a phone call to a physician versus going right into the clinic? What are we trying to?
Yeah, we're trying to avoid recordable incidents.
Yes.
But
Go ahead. Phil.
get you the care you need.
Right.
But get you, the most important thing is
Yes.
getting you the care you need as quick as we can.
And deep jump in here too. I do have to add that state of Minnesota cannot, the employers in the state of Minnesota cannot prescribe care. Okay? Some states actually can. What does that mean? I can't tell you as an employer, as an AET, cannot tell you where to go for qualified healthcare advice. They can't tell you that I sprained my ankle, you can't go to your own doctor. They can't tell you I sprained my ankle, I want to go to the clinic regardless. Okay. However, we think that this is really a good first place to start, especially for non-critical type injuries. Okay. We clear on that? This great value comes out of these folks. You're going to see that here in just a second. So, everybody have a copy of this? I gotta put this in the chat. I gotta put this in the chat. That's what I was gonna do. Let's walk through this real quick. This is the back side, I think. So, not that you have called in, but if you do call in to Work Partners, when an injury occurs, first notify your supervisor. Again, if you're really in a lot of pain or something and you want to call Work Partners, call Work Partners first, then you notify your supervisor. Okay, here's their number. I've got magnets and hard hat stickers and wallet cards up here if you want to grab one after the session. The doc is going to triage it, diagnose it within minutes of the injury. Again, they're good. They're pretty solid. Doctor may ask for a picture or video of the condition, your injury. On-site treatment then occurs. The doc says, well, yeah, go to the first aid kit and get a Band-Aid, right? The doc designs a recovery plan. They're going to give recommendations, rest, elevate, ice, ibuprofen, do that for a couple days. That's kind of the thing. The doctor may direct you to go to your ER urgent care, absolutely. So if they really think that you need care beyond what they can do over the phone, they're going to just say, get to a clinic. And then they're coordinate with local doctors to aid in your care, if that's the case. The nice thing is with them as well is that you do get the doctor's phone number, and you can actually call the doctor back, call into the system and actually talk to that doctor as well.
I've got a question, Dan.
Yeah.
So with this, you just call in. My understanding is just like a phone call, but they may ask for video or picture, or is meant telemedicine? Is there like extra, download an app or anything like that for it, or do you know what those additional steps look like? What those?
Yeah, we've had a couple employees do that. They use their phone, they take a picture in it, they send it to the health partners. I think it's a Dropbox or something within health partners, or it goes right to the doc, yeah.
On the phone.
On the
They tell
phone,
you
yeah.
where to send it.
Exactly, yeah. Just a look at the activity of Work Partners. This is the last 3 years, 22, 23, 24, a total of 37 times we had employees call into Work Partners, right? On average, about 13, 14 times a year. And in a given year, of those 13 or 14, 2 or 3, the doctor will say, go to the clinic, be seen. Those turn into recordable injuries, and that's fine. But what have we done? We've basically taken 10, 11 of those calls into the doc, and we've prevented those from becoming recordable injuries, in theory. It's good value, it really is. I think this is the last stuff. We're talking about some injury scenarios here. So employee experiences a sore back due to lifting activities. I've got a couple different outcomes here. Outcome A, the employee doesn't notify the supervisor or Work Partners. The soreness doesn't go away or gets worse, resulting in the employee suffering and notably unproductive. Waiting for treatment results in a longer recovery. Okay? Right, they gut it out, it goes on for a day, 2 days, it's not improving, right? It's just, that's not a good situation for us, it really isn't. It's not good for the employee, it's not good for us. Outcome B, they do call Work Partners. Work Partners provide self-care advice, they monitor the employee's condition. The supervisor shifts the work duties to help the employee recover. So, I know your back is sore, right? Let's just have you do something else for a couple days, right? So we're self-imposing those work limitations. That's not prescribed by a doctor, so it doesn't become a recordable injury, and the condition resolves within a week. Okay, that's the better choice there. Employee sprains ankle, concerned it might be broken. Employee calls work partners, doctor triages with questions and a photo, prescribes self-care. Supervisor keeps employee on light duty for a couple days, doctor calls back, it's not improving, and advises to go to the clinic for further evaluation and x-rays. Or, based on the hurt and the photos, the work partner's doc says, no, you better go there right now. Okay, so. Questions?
With the work partners, again, you noted that it's confidential, but that notice is given to you. Is notice also given to the supervisor or manager?
No, it's not. So what I do then when I get that is I make a phone call right to the supervisor and I say, I want to make sure you're aware that your employee is injured. Here's the recommendations, and then I start to talk to them and encourage them to go the route of maybe some self-imposed light duty work, right? Over the next few days. So trying to work with the supervisor to nurse that injury of that injured employee to get them to the point where they're back. Yeah.
What about I have something that happens at home?
Here we go. Yep.
Can I use the service? Can I call them?
So, is this work related? Are you working from
No,
home?
it's not work related.
So
You're not
go ahead,
supposed
Pete.
to.
Go ahead.
No.
You're not, okay,
You-
I just
In
curious.
the case of a non-work-related injury, you should go to your private physician and go to the urgent care or those types. There's other avenues for that.
Does Blue Cross Blue Shield, they've got a nurse care hotline
They
number
do
in the
have
back
nurse
of their
care.
card?
Yeah, Blue Care Blue Shield, Blue Cross Blue Shield. Our provider has a nurse hotline also. And it's readily available. It's right on their website.
Yeah. Good question. Anybody else?
Just to clarify, if you call this number, you should probably still inform your supervisor that something happened, right?
Oh,
You made it sound
absolutely.
like they'll call you, then you'll call the supervisor.
No.
Deal directly with your
Yeah.
Two people. First advantage, or work partners, your supervisor.
Yep. Anybody else? Anything online, Savannah, or not? Good questions.
But if you do get hurt at home, you should probably tell your supervisor.
Yes.
Because it could affect your work.
Yes.
You bring up a good point. Yes, employees have gotten hurt at home, come into work and try to claim that it's a work-related injury. That's not right. And if you're injured to the point where you can't perform your job duties safely, when you come to work on Monday or whatever day it is, you gotta let your supervisor know.
Always have a conversation with your supervisor.
Yeah. That's a good one. Anybody else?
We have
After
someone
something.
speaking via online. Can we hear it? Can you ask them to like repeat?
Can you repeat the question? We have a question?
Yes.
Hey Dan, you guys hear me?
Yes.
There we go, go ahead.
Hey, Nick.
There we go. Hey, Nick from Sioux Falls. I just want to chime in on the work partners. Individuals in my office have used it and they've given really great feedback in terms of how easy it is to use, how quickly it's responsive and so forth. So, seems to be like a stigma about not calling, but once they do, they're like, well, I'm really glad I did. And it's very quick and convenient, and both HR and thank you, Dan, you guys found out very quick what as fast that I did. So just want to throw that out there. Don't be afraid to call that number. So let's check it out.
That's a really good point, Nick. Yeah. There's no reprimand or repercussions from telling your supervisor and or calling work partners that you're injured or hurt. Again, we'd rather have you get on the front end of it than have it manifest and get worse over time, right? And then it's no good for anybody. Anybody else?
Hey, Dan, can you hear me? This is Kate.
Kate,
Oh, Kate. Hey, Kate.
Hi, sorry, and my voice sounds terrible. I've been a little sick this week, so please excuse my voice here. But, you know, I wanted just to kind of talk about work partners a little bit more. And work partners is really not just a partner of ours. It's really, they're really an integral part of our process. As an ESOP, as an employee-owned company, there is a lot of risk to the organization with recordables. And when we say this, why we use work partners, it's really to help us manage that while being able to get our people the care that they need. Because first and foremost, our people are the most important thing of all, obviously. But work partners is part of our process. And we can't require people to call work partners, but we have built work partners in to our process. So they're more than just a partner, they're truly an integral part of AET's process of really handling these injuries. So it is really important that we continue to drive that home to your teams. Obviously, you know, Dan's been pulling some various marketing materials that we'll get out to everybody, and I think that started here today. But yeah, it's a really, really important thing, and we trust work partners to be able to, you know, really provide that care that our employees need. So just wanted to kind of reiterate that.
Thanks, Kate. Again, hard hat stickers, magnets, wallet cards are right up here. Anybody online, if you do need that stuff, please reach out to me. I can put it in the mail to you pretty quickly. Any final thoughts or questions? We're at the top of the hour here.
Yeah, add this number as a contact on your phone.
there you go.
Beautiful.
Great idea.
Yeah.
Absolutely great idea.
Yeah. Nothing else online? Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Please don't get hurt.
Yeah.
Please.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ann.
everybody.
Yep.
Thank you.